Welcome everybody to another episode of Everything CPA and PE, where we're here to educate leadership teams on what's going on. We're here in beautiful Las Vegas during the NBA Finals, so we might just talk Knicks the whole day because we're both from New York, and
Absolutely.
I've been waiting 23 years or so. But we're both very excited. Today we have Calvin Harris. He's the CEO of the New York State Society, so somebody who has his pulse on this industry, who thinks about it all day, every day, although maybe the Knicks a little bit. Well, Knicks a little bit, but thinks about it all day and has tremendous access. So first of all, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you. And so as president of New York State, why don't we talk a little bit first about, you talk to firms all the time.
Yeah.
If you had one thing of advice, one thing that you want to share, what is that for leaders of firms?
Yeah, I think one thing is tough, to be honest. But if I had to nail down one, it would be future focused. You need to think about the future now in terms of things, because there are so many things happening at the same time that we have never seen in the profession. We've just literally never seen this many things happening like this. Obviously we're going to talk about PE. That's ground shaking, earth moving, all of the above. AI, same sort of thing. New pathways to licensure and CPA. I mean, all these things are happening. Any of them individually would be things that would dominate the conversation, but they're happening at the same time. And those are just three. We could rattle them off. So it's an amazing time.
And if you go into the exhibit hall 3 years ago, there's a little sticker maybe that said AI, right? Yeah. There's two booths that said AI. Now, if you don't have AI on your booth, I'm not sure you're allowed to even participate. Everything is AI.
Everything is AI, and I will admit, as what I thought was a joke, but it actually, some people paid attention to it. I actually created an AI bingo game.
Okay. And one of the things that we see is, and I think firms that invest in themselves, right? Yeah. They have a better shot at the future, because if you're not here, right, or if you don't participate with your state society, how can you be future looking when all you're doing is looking within your four walls?
That's the thing, because I think those who are thinking about the future now, they're going to be ready for what's next. I think that is where the huge opportunity is.
And I think as a leader, to me, part of your responsibility of a leader is to be, and in fact, I think one of the differences between a leader and your CEO is that we see farther into the future than the non-leaders.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the job, to be honest, because if you aren't thinking about the future, then you are absolutely condemning yourself to a short one. So you can't afford to not do it. And at a time like this, I'll say it this way, at a time like now, so many things come down to your perspective. All the things we list off and all the things that are going on, one could easily look at that and say, oh, it's a terrible time. I don't know what to do about this. I'm afraid to consider PE. I'm afraid to invest in technology. I'm worried about all these things. But what they really are opportunities. Same exact things. And it's really going to be about your perspective. And I realize it might sound wildly positive, because there are challenges
ahead. I don't think it's wildly positive.
But the opportunities to scale, they've never been greater. And you have so many ways. I mean, heck, we went a few minutes and the word offshoring or outsourcing hasn't even come up. And that's also ground moving. So it's a great time, in my opinion.
Well, and we see, you just mentioned offshoring, so we do a lot. We see that firms couldn't find talent locally, and all of a sudden they're as big as the biggest players in India, Philippines, South Africa, South America, wherever they happen to be.
Right.
And that is a game changer where I can scale. We worked with this one client. He said, I'm getting rid of clients.
Yeah.
And we said, let us help you.
Right.
A year later, he had 35 people offshore, and he was growing it like a weed, because all of a sudden he built that capacity.
Absolutely. And many of those firms are literally here at Engage, providing that opportunity for people. And there's just so many different ways to consider that weren't options before. Technology helps, and it's still a lot of opportunity for people.
And I want to go back to the mindset, because I'm a big believer in happiness, and mindset drives everything.
Yeah.
If you're looking at today as you're afraid, that means you're probably not going to take action. If you're looking today about, hey, there's possibilities, you'll take steps.
I completely agree. I think one of the more ironic parts of it is that, I would say CPAs, and I feel like I can say it. I'm a CPA myself. I'm just under 30 years of being licensed. So I know that many of us that start in the profession are conservative by nature, risk averse, all of the above. And admittedly, that mindset does not lend itself to a time like now.
Right.
So many CPAs, so many finance leaders, so many business professionals need to really consider risk from a more practical perspective, not thinking about what could go wrong, but thinking about what the opportunity is, what could go right. There are ways to be optimistic and still make sure that you've got your risk controlled. So.
Right. And then, from a mindset point of view also, if you're afraid, are you going to be able to get your staff excited about things? And, being afraid is not a fun place to be.
It's not. And I got to tell you, I had the opportunity this past year to do as an adjunct professor in New York. Small cohort, 15 students in my accounting class. And to a person, it's obvious how committed they were to the profession, but equally committed to it. What they were thinking about was, are they going to be able to find an organization that fits their values, to where they feel like it's a place where they belong, where they feel some sense of purpose. That doesn't mean it has to be, not-for-profit NGO like I spent so much of my career. You can have a sense of purpose at a firm, but it's going to come from the top. So organizations really have to think about their culture because it does matter. It absolutely matters to those who are entering the profession now. And it probably should have mattered some time ago, quite honestly.
And we see sometimes people will tell us, we don't want to do a deal because we want to preserve our culture and not be disrespectful. Sometimes the culture is sleepy and effective.
That's true. I should probably just say the right culture, because every organization has a culture, but it's got to be a culture that helps move things forward.
So, you work with you're the leader of one of the largest societies. So, and this time of so many things happening. Right? If it was only AI, that's one thing. If it was only P, if it was only... How does this share a little bit and advocate a little bit for joining your state society, but also state societies as a general thing? What value and impact are you bringing to this firms?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I love how you said the word advocate, because that's arguably the biggest part we provide, is that the CPA license is a state-by-state license. I'm licensed in 2 states, including the one where I serve, because that's the way the profession is set up. So each state helps represent the interests of the accounting profession. So whether it's laws, we've had great success in creating laws and being able to listen, because for so many cases, when firms need to move things forward, and I don't mean just maybe a taxation issue or an access issue, your state society is often your best resource. Even if you've made calls, we have the ability to pull levers that you simply can't. So that's one of the best values. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just business opportunities. When you've got, at least for us, we've got 13 chapters around the state of New York, just under 50 committees that are practicing in different areas. Whatever your area is, we have a community and a committee that focuses on it, which means you have the opportunity to engage with thought leaders that are in your area and also trade work. It is very common for people to go to one of our events or one of our meetings or just sit in one of your committees and you just meet someone naturally, and that's a business partner. It's not unusual for a transaction to have begun at the state society. So it's a gathering place. It's not just, we're at a lovely location here in Las Vegas, but the reality is most of the people here are doing CPE training. Sure, we're squeezing in some time at the Cabana, but we're also, talking to other professionals and meeting new colleagues. That's where the real power is for organizations like us.
I always say, when you put good people together, magic happens. You don't know exactly how or where, but somehow it opens.
Yes.
And, we're part of the BDO network, and I know for BDO, they get a lot of work from their network.
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. And that's it's certainly not unusual for even people to become part of the BDO network or any sort of partnership from getting together at events like this.
Right. And so, you talked about this is a time of lots of change. You have the 13 chapters. Are those chapters also in alignment with focusing on helping firms, move through these changes?
Absolutely. And what we end up seeing in many cases, particularly people are so used to doing things virtually. I love doing things virtually, but there's some times where it's really best to be local. And we definitely see within our chapters and our chapter structure that you have individuals, we'll use Long Island, for example, Nassau and Suffolk counties in there where they'll get together with their own colleagues and the lawyers and the bankers and the financiers in that area, and they all collaborate together. It's a natural thing that happens. You know, in the city, we did a partnering event with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, where we brought together their people with CPAs, and they all got a chance to connect. So those things just naturally happen. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I'm in New York, but the state societies all around the country do similar sort of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, when we look at also the state, a $5 million firm.
Yeah.
Right. I think you agree with this statement, so it's maybe a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
But investing time staying inside your firm and not going outside, whether it's to the state society, whether it's to here, you're making a mistake.
It's dangerous. I always say, I might be biased, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. You have a great opportunity to connect in different ways. I mean, and even if we want to think not just even the opportunities, but even the sunsetting of your career. We've seen so many cases where people, when they're looking to sell their practice or move their practice on, or adjust their timing, it's through those connections that they made that allowed them to do it. So it's not just the opportunities, although I'm a big fan of the opportunities. Even if you're thinking, hey, maybe it's a different time in my life, those opportunities are all together.
They're just different opportunities.
Just different opportunities, yep.
So we're here at AICPA. Anything that really excites you, that you heard about or that you saw on the floor of the pavilion?
Yeah, well, tons of things. Admittedly, we talked about AI, so I'm admittedly a big fan of technology. Candidly, I think it's because people of my age, a generation, we have I began my career at Arthur Andersen doing work on green ledger paper. I left just over 3 years later, ended up going ultimately to a client that I had. But by the time I left, you were doing most of the work in Excel. So and that's just a 3.5 year period of transition. So we're at such an interesting point. For me, the technology is so exciting because I can think of some of the things I did earlier in my career that you would never do now, or you do in a different way. And it allows people to be really creative. And I always push back, accountants are creative, just creative in a way that might be different than normal. But hey, that type of creativity can save people millions, if not billions of dollars. So that's my kind of creativity.
Absolutely.
Honestly. So I love the conversations about that. There have also been some really specific conversations within particular practice areas, whether we're talking about SOC compliance or better ways to handle your audit firm. There's been a lot of conversations on private equity and the opportunities there. So this is, in my mind, this is like Engage is like a huge thought leader gathering.
Including this.
Absolutely, including this. And because you've got all the tracks together, you end up having the tech-focused people connect with the audit people, connect with the SOC people, and they may not necessarily be together normally. But here you've got a few thousand, well, I think about 6,000 from what I heard, all together talking about accounting.
And one thing that you said, Calvin, is in 3 years, you went from writing on paper to using spreadsheets.
Right.
The speed of change is getting faster.
Yeah.
And, it was okay if you waited 2 years to get the second monitor or in 2 years to get the third.
Yeah.
Today, I think in 2 or 3 years, you might be so far behind if you're not moving, as you said, moving forward.
You have to adjust. I sometimes marvel that, where I went to school, there was a phrase they like to use that you always have a pen on you. I rarely have a pen on me these days, but what I always have on me
is a phone.
Absolutely. So it's like, I once made a joke to someone because I pulled out my wallet because I had to show them my ID. I said, the reality is, and I had my phone in my other hand, the reality is I would rather lose this. And I was holding my wallet, which actually had some money in it, than my phone.
Which is also somewhat rare today, in today's world, because sometimes it's hard
rare.
to spend.
Right. With my phone, I can get in anywhere I need to. I can pay for whatever I need to. At this hotel, it's my room.
Key, right?
Right. So
I didn't have to go to the front desk to get a key.
Right. And to that point, most of the work I do happens on that same phone. Yeah, albeit of course with proper security protocols on it, but everything happens on that device. So I think the changes have just provided a lot more opportunities for ways to be more engaged.
And look, if you don't believe in it, your clients are living it, right? So if you think, hey, it doesn't work for us, your clients' expectations are that you're using it. I asked my attorney, how do you use AI?
Yeah.
And when he said, we haven't approved anything yet, that was not a positive. That was a negative.
Yeah, I mean, I actually heard something about this at a session this week. And it was a really great suggestion on, encouraging firm leaders to use AI to actually QC themselves. Why? Because your clients are going to use it. And the moment they said that, something dawned on me. So I see, I go to the doctor for doctor's appointments. I had some blood work done. Well, I trust my doctors completely. I have no doubt in them at all. Yet, when I got my blood work, you know what I did? I took the screenshot, I uploaded it to AI, and I asked it to give me an opinion. And what was I going to do? As a former auditor, I compared what Claude told me to what my doctor told me. Good news, my doctor said the same thing. And I did that knowing that it's entirely possible that Claude could give me a bad result if I didn't give it all the inputs it needed that my doctor had access to. So, and that was an example where I completely trusted my doctor. So I can guarantee your clients are checking your work. If you're doing an automated solution, that data, the data you're using to work it through your software, your client also can do it to QC you. So you don't have to take on AI, but your clients sure are. So that's a huge, huge risk to not be engaged. No pun intended. You're putting your firm at risk.
Yes, and I do the same thing, right? Because it takes you a week between the results and talking to the doctor.
Well, I don't want to wait a week, right? I'm a little impatient. Look, in New York, I'm used to everything happening pretty quickly. I was like, why don't I know right now? So there you go.
Right. But if you're doing it with test results, like you said, the CPA clients are also looking into it and maybe doing it before they even talk to you.
That's right. That's right.
So Calvin, this was awesome. Before we wrap up, any additional points, thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to thank you and Whitman Advisors for providing this kind of forum. I won't deny, I love talking about accounting. I'm that person, but I also love about where the profession is. So I, first want to thank you all for providing this kind of forum. But also, I think it's so critical for the people that listen and watch to make sure they're thinking about the future. Engage is just one conference, and 6,000 is a lot of people. Yet that pales in comparison to all of the CPAs and all of the accountants out there.
I think there's 44,000 firms in the AICPA.
Absolutely. And I mean, heck, in New York State alone, there are about 64,000 licensed CPAs. And that's one state. Granted, we're one of the biggest, but that still pales in comparison. So there are huge opportunities out there. I implore everyone to just keep thinking about the future, pushing on the future, and making sure that your voice is heard, because the accounting profession is changing, I think, for the best, but it's so critical that we be in charge of the story that we're telling.
And I'm going to add one thing, right? Not only think about the future, take the action to create the future that is best for you.
Well said. Absolutely.
Right? Because it's not only thinking, it's doing, and take small steps to get started. That's okay.
Yeah. I got to admit, I'm going to take that line. When you hear it next time, it'll be, I took it right from you. I love that. I agree.
And Calvin, before we wrap up, let's both say, let's go Knicks.
Go Knicks.
I'm thinking about the future. Game 4 is this afternoon. Yeah. So hopefully we'll both be happy tomorrow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, I'm supporting the team regardless. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling. So
fingers crossed. So for our audience, always so appreciative of you spending some time with us. Like, subscribe, send us some questions. We're here to help support you on your journey. Calvin, this was awesome, and so appreciative of your insights. And go crush your day, everybody.